Hello, everyone, and welcome to Eye on Cricket. We're here to discuss the legendary match India versus Pakistan, a match that everyone was looking forward to for a long time. I know this as a citizen of India living in Ahmedabad. The crowds were just crazy, and so many people coming from all over India and all over the world to watch this very special match, and India is victorious. I would like to start off by asking Preetham, as an Indian, how do you feel about this victory, and what are the emotions that you feel as a result of this victory? Obviously, Indians are very emotional about any India versus Pakistan match.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you, everyone, and even Viren Junior, Viren Senior, for inviting me in this live show. But yes, India versus Pakistan always feels as a goosebump to any Indian supporter, any Pakistan supporter as well. But for us, it's always more emotional, to be fact, because we have, not just because of the streak 7-0, we have made it 8-0. We not because we know that if you compare the class, we have an edge above them, to be very honest, on paper. And yesterday as well, if you notice it, not just it was in India, we hosted it, not was it because of 2019 in England or 2015 in Australia as well. Whenever we begin a game, no matter what happens in the toss, we are firm favorites. This every time everyone says. And yesterday as well, we will talk about many other things going to the show, but that domination throughout the game was simply fantastic to watch. When Pakistan was around cruising with Rizwan and Babar, we expected both of them to be their best performance in the match as well. They were in 150 for two. We were calculating that maybe a 290 chase, a 300 chase. Though Ahmedabad under the lights is going to be batting easy, but if it's an India Pakistan, a 300 will look 350 kind of a wicket, even if they do not have a bowling. The atmosphere will be like that, and that's what we thought. But then a sudden collapse, 36 runs and 8 wickets, and then it was a different ball game.
Yeah, definitely. And I would like to just dissect the game now in more detail. Starting off with before the game, I would like to ask Rukaya this question. What do you think, other than on paper, the playing 11, what were the advantages that India or even Pakistan would have had coming into this game?
So, I mean, honestly speaking, there was a massive home advantage for India, and we know the way BCCI also approached this match. There's a lot of hype around it, but obviously there would have been pressure on equally on both teams, right? Because India, you're performing at home in front of 130,000 fans. There's massive pressure on you to perform and rise up to the occasion. And with Pakistan, the odds are against you. You have zero support in the stands, unfortunately. I don't want to discuss about anything towards the build up and the politics behind the whole thing, but I think at the end of the day, the whole home advantage really did play into India's favor, and I think Pakistan started off really well, but unfortunately, once they started crumbling, they really crumbled throughout.
Yeah, and I think just talking about that start, that was actually a very good, strong start by Pakistan. I was very impressed to see how they were able to absorb that pressure. Hats off to Imam ul Haq and Abdullah Shafiq, very impressive batsmen debuting in the World Cup. Viren, what do you think about that opening partnership, and how did things start off for Pakistan there, in your opinion?
Well, I thought there was a lot of intent shown, as you said, by both Imam and Abdullah Shafiq early on. But midway through the innings, I actually thought they were on course to get 280, 290, which I think would have been challenging for India because I don't think Rohit, Shubman, uh, Virat and Shreyas would have had that liberty to go so hard at the bowling attack early on had Pakistan posed 280, 290 because it was a very subpar total. It allowed for aggressive batting and aggressive intent early on. As a Sri Lankan fan, I kind of wish we saw that collapse one game earlier from Pakistan. It was a case of it was what ifs right throughout that batting innings, the second half of it actually. But it seemed imminent, and this is what was strange about watching them back yesterday. It seemed kind of imminent that once that partnership was broken, that there was a collapse around the corner. I've never had that. I usually don't have such premonitions about the Pakistani batting lineup, But as soon as Barber was dismissed, I could see a potential collapse in there. And then there was no coming out of that rut for Pakistan. Another thing that I want to add amidst all this is I genuinely think, and this was something, so when I was invited for Pritham's show a couple of weeks ago, I think I highlighted this. Pakistan have match winners, but there is an over reliance and over dependence on those match winners. Rizwan Babar with the bat, Shahin Shah Afridi with the ball. And yesterday you could see all their frailties and weaknesses coming out, even with their bowling department. We saw Nawaz and Shadab being taken to the cleaners. And I said this earlier, and I've said this countless times. The spin department needs a lot of work. And if Pakistan are going to progress and be a threat to reach the semis, etc., these are areas they'll have to work on. But to answer your question, Junior, I'll be very honest, as a neutral fan who had set aside his full day to watch India versus Pakistan on a Saturday, uh, uh, it wasn't the best cricketing action because, as both Pritham and Rook have highlighted, one side just outclassed the other. And 8-0 in World Cups now
Yes.
for India. So, yeah.
Pakistan was definitely trying to make history there, and they did not succeed. But I think that I would agree with you over there that it was not the cricketing action that we would have hoped for. But in the first couple of overs, it was definitely very interesting, and it was almost as if Pakistan had the upper hand. I believe that opening partnership really gave them a good base to start off from, and then that Babar Rizwan partnership was just amazing, and it really looked like they could take the game away from India at that point if it wasn't for that collapse. So, Preetham, what would you like to say about that partnership between Rizwan and Babar, and why was it so effective?
To be honest, not just I'll come to the Rizwan and Babar partnership secondly, but the opening partnership, silencing both our fast bowlers. Just like we saw 1,000 like 1,30,000 people were there in the stadium. It was complete silence each and every time the Pakistan players waiting a boundary. Just like in a football match, an away team scores and you don't have anybody shouting. Just like that. So I thought they dealt it brilliantly, and even the bowlers, both the bowlers. If you see, Rohit generally doesn't stop attacking, but when we saw there was no swing offered, he immediately took one slip off, and then even the bowlers pulled their length back, started bowling a back of a length delivery, bowling stump to stump, which allowed them to score less runs on the gaps. They had to be creative. And similarly, that wicket of Abdullah Shafiq, if good people noticed that, he put in square leg back. He was doing something with the square leg, which made Abdullah feel like he's coming for a bouncer. And then which was a cross seam straight up, and he was plumb LBW. So those moments tend to be different. Similarly, Hardik Pandya's mantra, what was it? We don't know, but it was something like that. He said something to the ball, and it turned out to be a wicket of Imamul Haq. But going to the fact of Rizwan and Babar Azam partnership, we knew they are really, really top class players of spin. Rizwan got lucky, but I don't know. I'll be very honest that the DRS isn't working. I'll be very, very honest. I think there's something wrong with the Hawkeye. Similarly, my cricketing knowledge, I might be wrong, but the Steve Smith dismissal against South Africa, how can that hit leg stump? I have no clue in my opinion. Similarly, Marcus Stoinis, that one could be something debatable, but Steve Smith, I have no doubt that if you can see off stump how that is hitting leg stump, not even umpire's call, how that is hitting leg stump is bare to my imagination. Similarly, a Mohammad Rizwan, none of the stumps were visible. If you could say that off stump was visible or something, he's standing in front, and if it's missing leg stump, that still is okay. But I this is my opinion. Those two batsmen were cruising, but that's where something comes into equation that Pakistan in the last 18 ODIs, if I'm not wrong, hasn't hit a single six in the power play. That is a big worry. That is a big worry because you need intent. You need 1,000 balls. You have not hit in a six in the power play is something you need. If you look into the top four batsmen, apart from Mohammad Rizwan, the three batsmen knows to play in boundaries. You have Fakar Zaman who can play sixes, but you can't take the risk. He's a free wicket if there is a good opponent bowler. So that's the reason I think they were cruising well. They had some plans. They had instead of 280, 290, they tried to think of 350, and that's where I think the collapse came in. Just like Viren said that the collapse was around the corner once Babar got out, and it was evident. Shout Shakil after the match said, "I thought it was a leg spin," and he got blocked with a dusra. So you don't know in a spinning track, you're coming to India being less prepared, and that's when it happened. I think that partnership, that breaking of partnership, giving India even the 12th man crowd, giving them the energy, and then it was the collapse was around the corner. Even if the car, it was something he should have definitely looked in the scoreboard and said, I could have taken 3-4 overs time and then started my acceleration. You got a short ball, you hit it for four, that's done. Wait on. Kuldeep is our man with the old ball. He will definitely trouble you. And he was not looking settled, and that's the reason why wickets kept tumbling.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And just adding on to that, I think the fact that Pakistan hasn't shown a lot of aggression in that power play yet is definitely going to change with this new talent, Abdullah Shafiq, coming into the playing 11. Started off his career with a century in the World Cup. I think there's definitely some potential there. But I think just adding on to your point, there were some mistakes by that Indian Indian side from a tactical point of view in that first power play. I feel that Bumrah and Siraj, both of them, as you said, were bowling too full. Whilst it's known very obviously that Imam Hulak faces difficulties against the short ball, but they were letting him play his shots, use his wrist really well against the fast bowlers, which is why we didn't start off really well, in my opinion. Just moving on to that partnership and talking more in detail about that half century by Babar and the brilliant class shown by Rizwan. I think that was a really well crafted inning, especially because of his wrist work, in my opinion. The way he was able to play good length balls and almost short balls on the ground and take singles and be very busy using his wrist. I think that was just a batting masterclass and just amazing. Rukaya, what would you like to say about that partnership and then the consequent collapse and why that happened?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think that kind of put the pressure straight back on India because after that comeback from Hardik getting the wicket of Imamul Haq, Rizwan come in. That was probably for me. In my opinion, I thought that if India are going to enforce a collapse, it has to be now, right? Don't let Rizwan settle because we've seen even in the previous matches, the minute Rizwan goes, scores above 20-25 runs, he's going all the way. I agree with you. I think he got a bit lucky with that LBW decision. I was also a bit confused as to how it went Pakistan's way, but that's the way the game goes on. We don't whatever the DRS said, you just have to accept it, I guess. I think the way Babar and Rizwan handle that game awareness, that's what really was the strength of the partnership, and that's what lacked after Babar's wicket, as you mentioned with Iftikhar. And we've seen this time and time again with Pakistani batters, and in fact, a lot of other teams as well at drawback comparison to Sri Lanka is game awareness, right? They have obviously you've been given a role in the team, but you have to adapt your role towards the situation in the game. Iftikhar is a finisher, but when you've had two big wickets fall around you, your job is now to first steady the ship 3-4 overs. This is not a T10 or a T20 game where you have to go all out from ball one. That was the mistake, and obviously once in such a high pressure situation, once you start losing one or two wickets, the collapse was inevitable.
Yeah, just talking about that middle order in more detail, I really believe that Iftikhar and Saud were the reason that Pakistan lost that game. They had a good start, and if they would have stabilized the innings at that point, they had a nice chance of at least scoring 250 at that point, even after Rizwan got out. But I feel that the lack of experience, as you said, Iftikhar was the only one over in the middle order, I believe. Saud is relatively new to international cricket. I haven't heard his name that much, if I'm not wrong. But I feel like the middle order of Pakistan hasn't been that strong in this World Cup until now. Viren, would you want to draw parallels between Pakistan's middle order batting right now with that of Sri Lanka, which has not been very impressive in terms of the average and the experience?
I can't seem to get away from answering questions linked to Sri Lanka right now. But yeah, I'll take this on. Um, this might sound very strange, but it's our upper middle order that's saving us over the course of this World Cup. You're looking at Sadira Samaravikrama, Charita Salanka, even in that game against South Africa. I think the difference here is when it comes to our middle order right now, we have serial match winners. Players like Charita Salanka, Sadira, DDS on his day who can kind of make an impact. But with Pakistan, once they're done with their top four, I can't remember an instance where Iftikhar has single-handedly won Pakistan an ODI without having Rizwan or Babar at the other end. And this is something I've noticed, and I want to dig up some numbers on this. When Iftikhar has Babar or Rizwan at the other end, and they bat out a good 5 or 6 overs, Iftikhar becomes a dangerous batsman, reminding me of the likes of Misbah-ul Haq in his prime, who could accelerate freely, knowing that there was an anchor at the other end. But when you have, and this is where my concern comes in, and these are where the parallels come in. You have players like Saud Shakil, Salman Aga, who was on the bench, who don't have much ODI baggage and experience with them. And yet you're taking them straight into a World Cup. So this is where I draw similarities between Pakistan's lower middle order and Sri Lanka's bowling attack, right? I mean, both these separate entities are good enough, are very good, have loads of talent. Don't get me wrong. The likes of Salman Aga, Saud Shakil, you take the likes of Beruwalage, Madhushanka on our bowling front as well. These are very talented individuals. But do you dump them in a World Cup environment? Do you dump these players like Saud Shakil in a World Cup environment in front of 135,000 fans in Ahmedabad to perform when they haven't done so in a normal bilateral series or in a normal international game outside of the World Cup zone? And this is where I question Mickey Arthur, the Pakistani think tank, and the Sri Lankan think tank as well, for not valuing experience when it comes to World Cup selections. And let's look at our neighbors. Let's look at India. We don't have to look too far. Every player in that playing 11 yesterday, let alone the bench, I think I can take all 15 players from India's squad for the World Cup and name you not just one occasion, but multiple occasions in which they've been match winners for India in ODI cricket. You take South Africa, you take New Zealand, you take, and I'm just seeing Afghanistan's resurgence with Mujib taking Sam Curran to the cleaners. Take teams like Afghanistan as well. You have match winners across the board. And this is my concern, right? When you strategize and plan in cycles for World Cups, you make the World Cup your main focus, main objective, main goal. But where was this rationale behind bringing in players at the last minute without giving them match time or experience? Pakistan had countless opportunities to do this. They had the Asia Cup. They had a series prior to the Asia Cup as well, where they back at home, where they could have tested out various combinations. But they chose to stick with experience, chose to stick with players like Fakhar Zaman, who are now being discarded. And at the point at which you discard experience, you need experience coming in. But they're lucky that Abdullah Shafiq is an outstanding player. And I'm not just saying this because he has scarred Sri Lanka on so many occasions. And even during that run chase, Rook put up a message on our Ion Cricket group saying, watch Abdullah Shafiq pierce through the hearts of Sri Lankans again, which he did. But he's an outstanding batsman. But that middle order has a huge void. After Rizwan, Babar, and Iftikhar, I can't trust Shadab and Nawaz with the bat each and every game. So there is a void there, Junior. And to all our viewers tuning in, feel free to post comments. We'll take them on during the show.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you made. I think the fact that statistically Iftikhar hasn't been able to play that crucial big innings if Rizwan and Babar haven't been on the other end is interesting. Preetham, what do you think was the turning point in the game? Like, was it when Rizwan got out and Iftikhar was basically left with the tailenders to find out a way to win them or put 200 to 50 on the board? Or was it when Babar got out? Or was it when Bumrah started to turn things around and take wickets? What do you think was the reason that Pakistan wasn't able to put up 200?
See, no doubt I would firstly mention Babar Azam's wicket. That opened a slight gate for us to make a comeback or get us back into the game. We were always under control, but if we had to get on top of Pakistan, that was only. And like Babar said, it was straight delivery. He tried to tap it to third man. It's a batting mistake. But you need to get class batsmen out with a class delivery. And I think the ball of the day was Mohammad Rizwan's wicket of Jasprit Bumrah. But what I would want to say is that I've never witnessed this in Pakistan. I want Rukai's input in this. Is that the reason why you do not promote players? Just like if yesterday you're sensing a collapse, South Shakil got out, and you need somebody to stabilize the innings, and you are saying Iftikhar is a finisher. Why not promoting Mohammad Nawaz up the order to settle the tone, and then bring in Iftikhar if required in the last 10 overs to finish off the innings?
So actually, my opinion is not Nawaz. It should be Shadab, right? He's a vice captain of the team. He's probably, if you look at that middle order, after even including Rizwan, Shadab is the more experienced guy, and he should have come in. He should have taken this thing. He should have settled the nerves and said, "Look, Iftikhar, your job here now. I will steady the ship. Your job is to keep the strike rotating, and when you get the opportunity to score runs and hit the boundary, go for it." He should have been, the experienced player coming in, seen the situation of the game, and obviously, as we've mentioned time and time again, pressure was really on them at that point. And just moving or talking further on Shadab's performance this World Cup, I've been quite disappointed because even with the ball, he's not firing the way he's not had a great form even in the recent past. Asia Cup also, you saw he didn't really have any match-winning performances, and that poor form, unfortunately for Pakistan, has continued into the World Cup. So yeah, I mean, obviously Iftikhar was to blame, but I would put more of the this thing onto Shadab.
And just because he's the vice captain, do you think he's undroppable to bring in Usama Mir into the side?
No, I honestly, the reason I think he's undroppable is because I don't think Pakistan have somebody with a similar skill set that has enough experience to come in and play at a World Cup. You can't bring in Usama Amir at such a tender stage in his career into such a high pressure tournament. I'd rather keep Shadab and cross my fingers and feet and everything and hope he performs than bring in somebody like that.
Uh,
And before I
yeah,
bring in Junior, if Usama Amir was from Sri Lanka, we'd have definitely played him by now in the World Cup. We use the World Cup as a breeding ground for talent. It's a talent search and a scouting mechanism now for Sri Lanka cricket. Junior, I'm going to bring you in here because I've dumped you with having to do hosting duties, and I can see you itching to give your take on the game as well. Um, as someone who closely follows Indian cricket, my question to you is how heartening is it to see Hardik Pandya coming in, running in at 140 clicks? We know he's had injury concerns in the past. We know there's a lot of talk about combinations and how it's important for him to fulfill his duties as an all-rounder and to be that third slash fourth seamer in the side. How heartening was it to see him running in regularly at 140 clicks?
Yeah, I think I have very strong opinions about this. Good question. I think Hardik Pandya being that sixth bowler for India has been brilliant, and actually, it's very crucial, especially in this squad where they're playing Shardul Thakur in the playing 11. And I don't believe that Shardul Thakur is capable of bowling 10 overs. I don't think he should have even been in the squad, in my opinion. Like
absolutely,
you mentioned, Viren,
absolutely.
that India's squad is perfect because they have match winners. And I think about Shardul Thakur. Yes, he had that innings in Gaba, but in white ball cricket, he has not been that effective. And especially if you're not going to ball Shardul in the first 20 overs with the new ball, I don't think there's any point of balling him at all because he does not have the pace. He has some swing, and only if he's able to use that, he'll be effective. But the decision to bring Hardik Pandya in instead of Shardul in the first, after the first, in within the first 20 overs was just very interesting because against Babar, they had a peculiar strategy to ball short. I'm not sure why that was because Babar was really taking advantage of that. And he was playing some brilliant hook and pull shots for boundaries. And I think that was the reason that we saw that small partnership between Babar and Rizwan. It was another strategic error by India to ball short to Babar instead of balling short to Imam. But Hardik definitely capable of balling that short ball to the right batsman with the right field, which I didn't think he had. But when as soon as he changed that length and brought it to a good length, he got that wicket, got that breakthrough, and we saw Hardik Pandya bowling at his best. Speed wise, I think he started off a bit slow in this match, around 130, 125. But last game he was clocking 140 consistently. So that's very good. And he's very capable of being that fourth seamer if he's able to consistently ball 140 and he's able to ball the short balls when needed to the right batsman.
Actually, I'd like to add something on there to what Viren said, and talking about Shardul. And this is just kudos to India's talent and batting depth and bowling depth that they have, right? That they can afford to play a player like Shardul in the side as just a buffer for both their bowling and their batting. I don't think he's a frontline bowler. I don't think he's a frontline batter. Even as an all-rounder, I think for me, Ashwin is a bigger asset in the team. Obviously, I think they having the pitch and the match conditions, they decided to go for Shardul. Um, I may not agree with that decision, but it's just a testament to India's playing 11 strength that they have the privilege of playing a player like that. Whereas when you look at Pakistan, on the other hand, I don't think they have that many all rounders, obviously, other than Shadab and Nawaz. And even then, I think they're with their frontline bowlers who they've historically always had such a high dependence on not firing the way they usually fire. I mean, it's no this thing that now you can see Shaheen Shah Afridi is not on the top of his game. They're missing Naseem Shah. And even Haris Rauf, he's clocking in the pace, but he's not being as threatening as, let's say, he was in the T20 World Cup just last year. So I think that's probably where you differentiate between the two teams, right? Because both of them have class batters, and class bowlers who some maybe not performing, but it's the all rounders that make the big difference.
Uh,
Yeah,
I'm,
just a quick
go ahead.
point to add on that. Sorry, senior. I think the fact that Shardul was bald was maybe right for the pitch, but actually it didn't seem like they had to play Shardul. They could have still played Ashwin.
Yeah,
The way it was turning for Jaddu was just magnificent. It was like Akshar Patel against England in the same ground. It was turning like crazy sometimes. So it was definitely a possibility to play Ashwin. And just talking about that spin attack, had one question for Preetham as an Indian. Uh, Kuldeep Yadav is having some good spells in the World Cup already. He's been our X factor bowler that we brought in. Hasn't been consistently in the present in the ODI squad, has been on and off for the last decade. What do you think about his role in this World Cup and whether he's going to be the reason why India win the World Cup? And also,
absolutely.
this is a two-part question. What do you think about Shubman Gill's recovery?
Yeah, I was very. I'll come to the second part first because as that was the first name that came into my mind. Is that I was very worried that it was not required yesterday as well to play him. I would say so because we are not we're just hurrying him, but it's good that he has 4 to 5 days of rest now. We might get one day of optional training, but I was very worried that he's been recovering too quickly from fever. So that's one thing. But it's so good to see him greeting Shaheen Shafridi through the covers first ball. So it made sure that he is ready in his home ground. But yes, coming back to that point, Kuldeep Yadav. I'll come to Kuldeep Yadav's skill set later. But the way Rohit Sharma has been captaining his side, I think that's fantabulous because he's rotating his bowlers so well. Even yesterday, we thought that we need Bumrah now to break this partnership, and he brought in Siraj to get rid of Babar. I'll be very honest, I was expecting Bumrah to come in to get rid of the breaking the partnership, but it was Siraj who came in, and even Kuldeep, he just bowled one over, and then from the other end, Babar got out, and immediately brought in Imam got out, and he immediately brought in Jaddu. So he wants Kuldeep to bowl with a much older ball, the ball which is much softer after the 20th over, to get more spin from those deliveries, and whichever end he's more comfortable for. So the way Rohit is using Kuldeep, and not just because Kuldeep has made few changes in his bowling action, run up, speed, etc., etc. He has been tremendous, not just in the Asia Cup, before the Asia Cup as well. He's at his peak. And Kuldeep, I've said this before, even when Viren was part of our show, Kuldeep has to play each and every game for India. That is a must. And I think if we qualify, then the rest factor comes into equation. I think Hardik Pandya will be the first player that gets rested. But I think that Kuldeep is somebody who's a match winner with the ball, along with Jasprit Bumrah and sometimes Siraj and Jaddu. I think if you are able to keep a player like Mohammad Shami, if I offer Rukai or if I offer Viren to take Mohammad Shami in the team, they will definitely straight away put him in the playing 11, give him the new ball. So if you're if you're keeping Mohammad Shami out of the squad, which means your team is so well built and such a talented team. So I think the team is superb. I hope they keep on performing this, but I would also want to add that I don't want Shardul to play any more games. They are playing according to conditions, but if he's not producing anything, the amount of runs he can score with the bat, I think Ashwin can also score that much amount of runs with the bat. The amount of help the pitch was providing yesterday, Ashwin definitely could have bowled 7 to 8 overs a minimum, and then given rest to Hardik Pandya. So I think wherever we go, apart from Wankhede, the rest of the grounds, I think Ashwin is somebody who should definitely play as a third spinner, in my opinion. And I'm going on to Viren Junior. I want to ask, as you're an Indian, how satisfied were you seeing Shreyas Iyer bagging a 50?
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next point. I think Shreyas Iyer has always been one of my favorite players. As a fan of Delhi Capitals, I really value how he was able to bring Delhi Capitals to another level and bring us to the final. So he's definitely impressing us. A solid 50 by him yesterday. But I still think it's interesting that they're backing Shreyas Iyer here instead of going for the fan favorites, the person that people are saying is even more talented than Virat Kohli and can match AB de Villiers with his style. Sky, Surya Kumar Yadav, I think he is someone who can be played against bigger teams like Austria. Shreyas Iyer is not known to play well against England, Australia, South Africa. He plays better against teams like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and South Asian teams, in my opinion. So I think against these teams that have a general fear for Sky because of what he's done against them in T20s, he can be played as an X factor. What do you think about that, Viren?
First off, this question brings back very fond memories of our late brother Hassan from the Cricket Analyst, because Hassan and Junior used to have countless debates and discussions on Sky versus Shreyas Iyer, with Zorez also chipping in every now and then. So, Hassan, we hope you're watching this from above. We miss you, brother. Getting to that question. Yeah, it was quite refreshing to see Shiraz also having an attacking mindset. I think Shiraz is at his best when he has that attacking mindset against spinners, like we saw yesterday. And I'm going to draw a link here, and I think I'm quite well placed to draw this link with Kusal Mendis. Both Shreyas Iyer and Kusal Mendis have one similarity in my books. Whenever they're tentative, whenever they're just looking to nudge at the ball and settle in, they look slightly off shape, slightly off character. And that has been Shreyas and Kusal's downfall whenever they've gotten out whilst trying to settle in. But if you give them the license to play their natural game, they're both beautiful stroke players. And it's wonderful to watch them. And I'll be very honest, the part of the game yesterday that I enjoyed watching most was when Rohit Sharma and Shreyas Iyer were compiled that partnership together. It was just beautiful timing, and it was just beautiful to watch as a neutral. So yes, it's nice seeing Shreyas Iyer back in form. But linking to the discussion we had on Shardul Thakur, Ashwin, etc., it's mind-boggling for me that you have players like Ishan Kishan, Surya Kumar Yadav, who can't find themselves a spot in this playing 11. And we'll have this discussion now. And Rook, I'm going to bring you in here. We've spoken about great World Cup squads. We've spoken about Australia in 2003, Australia in 2007, Australia in 1999, maybe Australia in 2015 as well, India in 2011. I can put Sri Lanka up there quite confidently with Sri Lanka in 07 and 2011 as well. I know that this might be a bit premature because we're still very early in the early stages of this World Cup. But how close to perfection has this Indian team come to in terms of selecting 15 players for all conditions that they'll find across the 9 venues that they play in India?
Yes, I think, honestly speaking, on paper, for me, India looks the strongest team. Obviously, they've done their homework. They knew that this is a big tournament coming in. Having been chosen as the hosts, this is one of the only teams that I feel has really planned and built up their squad towards the World Cup. Obviously, excluding the last minute drama that was, Ashwin coming in, Ashwin coming out, and finally after Akshar's injury, he was brought into the squad. Other than that small hiccup there. I think overall they had covered their bases. They've got, if you look at all the players that they've got, not only do they slot into the positions in the team, but they've got players who can tackle each position with a different approach, right? For example, Rohit Sharma and Shubman Gill open the innings, but if at all they come into a position where they want to play a squad where they think they need to go, give a particular player license up there to go and just destroy destroy a bowling attack without any consequence, they bring in Ishan Kishan for a game. If they feel like they need this kind of 360 player in the middle order whose strength is playing spin, they bring in Surya and they'll probably drop Shreyas, or maybe even play one less all-rounder and then bring in Surya. So they can adapt their squad to matchups, they can adapt their squad to conditions, and I think on paper India seem to be front runners. Obviously strong competition coming in from the performance side from both South Africa and New Zealand. I think these three teams for me are clearly at the top in this World Cup as per what we've seen so far. So it's going to be interesting. My only small caveat here is that historically, if you look at India's World Cup performances and big tournament performances for that matter, they've always had this one game where they've just completely flopped, right? They've had batting collapses, bowling collapses, and it's just been one game. They've been probably the strongest team throughout the tournament and then happened. So
Can
for
that be
me,
against Sri Lanka?
I was going to say, I hope for India's sake that this does not come in like the semi-final or something, because that's what happened previously in 2019. I hope that does not happen again in 2023.
Yeah, I would like to add on just 2 points. Yeah, the reason why I think India has the best team on paper is because of two reasons. First of all, as we talked about already, Hardik Pandya bringing in immense balance with his dependable bowling, and the other thing that's been very dependable as a keeper, I have to talk about this. KL Rahul's keeping. I feel like we don't feel the absence of Rishabh Pant the way Rahul has been able to hold on to catches, and the way he fits in so well at number five, if I'm not wrong, number five in the ODI format. I feel that Ishan Kishan, it allows us not to play Ishan Kishan because I don't think Ishan Kishan is ready for the ODI format, in the sense that I don't think he has found his ideal position. It took some time for KL Rahul to find his position. They tried to open him, it didn't work. I think it's a similar situation for Ishan Kishan. I don't think he is an opener in the ODI format because the way he debuted against Sri Lanka, he came in opening in the ODI format, and he came in from with the approach to go with a aggressive mindset from the first ball. But I felt like that was a bit mindless and too T20 oriented, and we saw the consequence of that against Australia, which led to an early batting collapse. So I feel that he's not really ready for the ODI format as such. And also, just talking about Surya Kumar Yadav, I believe that I have a difference in opinion there. I think when there's a chance, when we want the middle order to attack spin, I feel Shreyas is more suited to that, because the way Shreyas has been able to play spin has been marvelous. The way he's able to come down the ground and play those lofted drives to spinners. I feel Surya Kumar Yadav is able to play pace really well, the way he has that ram shot and some very unorthodox shots. So I think it'll depend more on what team India is playing. So if they're playing Australia, South Africa, England, I think Surya Kumar Yadav is the better option.
Brilliant. I've had a couple of questions coming in. Yes, guys, feel free to post comments. We will take comments on. Before we start slowly wrapping up the show, because one point of feedback I got was, as much as they love listening to us, that we should have shows that exceed 1 hour. So I will try and keep this quite concise. And we will have Pritham back with us whenever he's free, whenever we can have him back. A couple of questions for all three of you. Hypothetically, and I think this is an important question. This was something I was thinking about whilst watching the game yesterday. If you take the Asia Cup, not the Asia Cup that we saw a couple of months ago, but the one in the UAE that Sri Lanka won, and a couple of other events where India has played Pakistan. My question to Pritham, Junior, and Rook is, hypothetically, if something went wrong yesterday, let's assume yesterday was India's off day. there seems to be so much media emphasis on this one game during a World Cup. Like, jokes aside, on the very first day of the World Cup, England versus New Zealand, Mayanti Langer, Matthew Hayden, during the mid innings break, highlighted the 14th of October. And this was going to be India's third game of the World Cup. Anything could have happened in that game against Australia and Afghanistan. But the focus was already on the 14th of October. My question, Pritham, Rook, and Junior is, let's assume this game was the off day. Would that have been a complete derailer for India in terms of momentum leading to the leading to the latter stages of the World Cup? Or do you think India has now learned its lesson about not overemphasizing this one Pakistan-India game in an ICC event? Pritham, yeah, go
Uh,
ahead.
yeah, I would say the latter of the what you said is that we are, like Rohit said it post match as well, that we are not seeing this as an India Pakistan game. That if we win this game, we win the championship. It's just a one single normal game. But yes, if you come into the point about the media, if it would have been not our day yesterday, then definitely the media would have been all guns blazing. And the smartest person I think was Rohit Sharma, who's not using social media since the last 8 months. Best thing is not to come on social media. Focus on the next game, that is against Bangladesh. And if you win that, those things will go aside. But Pakistan journalists, Indian journalists will keep on saying that we have defeated you. Just like Pakistan in the 2019 World Cup, if you all remember, they said for us defeating India is a World Cup win apart from winning the World Cup. So for them, defeating us is more important than this. But I think one game at a time. What if we had lost against Australia and Afghanistan? A bigger defeat would have been if we had lost against Afghanistan than against Pakistan. So if you compare those things, I think so far so good. But yes, if you term this, I think it was just one single game for us. Our players have improved in terms of matching this as a one single normal game, just like we rated Afghanistan, we rated Australia. And we have kept this aside. Move on to the next game, game number 4 against Bangladesh in Pune. Let's focus on them. So I don't think it's any other hype or anything.
First of all, I'd
Well,
like to respectfully disagree with one point that Preetham said. I think Babar Azam's attitude was very similar to what Rohit Sharma's attitude is. From the players' point of view, I think both teams had tried their best to disregard the hype. I don't think Pakistan came in with the attitude saying that beating India is winning the World Cup for them. So I think that was a false point made there. From the media point of view, I think both sides of the media, whether it was the Indian media or the Pakistani media, this is all that their focus has been on. Because, I mean, understandably so, this is where the revenue is coming from, this is where the eyeballs are, and we've seen, like other games where there's not much, even in the stands you won't see as much of a crowd and all of that. Obviously, I'm excited to see once it gets to the semifinals and final stages. Hopefully, regardless of whoever the teams that come in, I hope this tournament draws in the crowds and media and attention that it really deserves. But again, coming back to the point of the India-Pakistan game, back to our WhatsApp chat, where straight after the match, I had posted a screenshot of Mickey Arthur, and I had said that, look, I agree with what Mickey Arthur says. I think the atmosphere in the whole ground was completely against Pakistan, and it's how it is when one team has a home advantage, right? But I think that because India Pakistan has such a massive hype and so much attention around it, we should try and have it at neutral venues so that neither team has such a big advantage and neither team is under that much pressure. Obviously, it's different when India is hosting the World Cup, but I think it'll be a fairer comparison to see which team is a better team when they play somewhere like UAE or Sri Lanka or England or anywhere else, right? Because you're going to have fans from both sides, you're going to have support from both sides, you're going to have neither team is going to have a home advantage or anything like that. And also, like, I feel for the Indian team, imagine if it had been their off day. As much as they would try to get all this media hype out of their heads and not let it affect them, it's going to affect you, right? So thankfully, India didn't lose. Thankfully, there were no hiccups, and we move on to the next game.
We have not
yeah,
experienced this as of now in the last 8 years, 8 World Cups, so we don't know what happens.
Although not in
I
World
like
Cups, I
how
think
Indian fans just forget what happened in the T20 World Cup and talk only about ODI World Cups when it suits them.
I think that's I will have to take kind of a different stance to Preetham here. Uh, I think that although it's been a reiterating statement that everyone in the Indian squad since the last 20 years has said repeatedly that we will treat this as any other game. And I think they go in with that mindset because of how much they have reinforced that. They have access to the best sports psychologists who are able to, and the best resources to make sure that their mental stature and their mentality is like that when they go in. But it's not only, I think it's less about media hype, and I think it's more about legacy history. It's more about
Yeah,
their
yeah.
personal expectations and their personal uh, expectations from themselves from in such a big game, that although they may create a mindset that this is just another game, if they end up losing it, as Viren mentioned so relevantly, that after we lost to Pakistan in that cup, we were not able to recover from that. The fans were obviously not able to recover, but the team was not able to recover and find their momentum again. So I think that definitely has an impact on their mindset. And living in Ahmedabad, I can tell you that it was not only when the India versus Australia game was happening that the hype was really high. It was months before the game
Yeah, yeah.
when the tickets were already sold out officially, and they were resold for thousands of rupees.
So the pressure is always there. Just like Shubman Gill, I would want to say that because why at the biggest stage you feel the pressure. The first game against at the Asia Cup against Pakistan, which got eventually washed out, he was feeling the heat. Where Naseem Shah, I think Naseem Shah is a huge miss for Pakistan's bowling attack. I think to be very fair, Pakistan's I rate him more dangerous than Haris Rauf and Shaheen Shafridi. I'll be very honest because he is that person that sets the tone up on the other end bowler to pick wickets. So he's a bigger miss. But the way Shubman Gill was feeling the heat and eventually got out to Haris Rauf, I guess, if I'm not mistaken. So I think the way he was feeling the heat in the match one and then came up and recovered and got that second game, got that blistering start against Shaheen Shafridi. That shows why this game is such a big one. The players know it. Now, the likes of Rohit, Kohli, they are now experienced. They have played this India Pakistan game at least 4 to 5 times. That's the reason why they're used to it. But yes, the debutants like Gill that time again, Shreyas Iyer, then you have Siraj a bit. They will feel the heat, and that's now they are, I think, used to it. But yes, this India Pakistan thing itself creates a lot of intent and hype in the players as well.
I think I had one more question, and in the interest of keeping to Viren's promise of concluding our show under 1 hour, I'd like to throw this question all out to all three of us. And I think from the discussions we've had today, it's pretty clear that we all think India is a front runner to win the cup this time. But in your opinion, all three of you, maybe you can take turns. Who do you think, going on the squad itself on paper as well as current form, who do you think the biggest threat to India would be in this tournament and why? Viren,
I'll
maybe
go
you can.
first. Yeah, I'll go first. Two teams for me. And this too comes with a caveat that this particular team also has the ability to choke and have the off day quite often in big events, and that's South Africa. That team is filled with match winners. You take their top order from Quinton de Kock to Rassi van der Dussen, Heinrich Klaassen, David Miller, Aiden Markram, who is, in my opinion, one of the most exceptional batsmen going around. The bowling attack of Marco Jansen and Gilly Rabada, we saw what they did against Australia. And their spin bowling department, with Maharaj tightening things up at one end and Shamsi doing Shamsi things on his day. I think that is a stacked 11 and an 11 that can threaten any team at this World Cup. But once again, it then comes down to mindset, mentality, and South Africa have proven in world events that they generally don't have what it takes to go the distance. And I hope that changes for them this year. And I hope they take on the Springboks mindset and mentality with this particular World Cup. And that's a reference to the Springboks playing the Rugby World Cup quarterfinals tonight against France. And one thing that I'm going to just quickly drop in here, Luke, and this was something I noticed after watching the rugby quarterfinals yesterday. I'd like to have that old World Cup format back, where we had two separate groups of 6 or 7 teams each. it accommodated for more associate teams to play in a World Cup. And it also accommodated teams to look to why to play against each other in a quarterfinal, semis, or a final, and have the quarterfinal in there. Because I think there's something about knockout sports in general that adds value, adds meaning to games, right? Because the last thing I want is midway through this cycle for South Africa to be on 5 wins out of 5, India to be on 5 wins out of 5, New Zealand to be on 5 wins out of 5, and every other team just scramble for that final semi-final spot, right? It happened slightly in 2019 as well, where India and Australia and England, for that matter, ended up being runaway 1, 2, 3, with New Zealand getting that fourth spot. But there's something about World Cups and knockout sport that make it a very attractive watch, right? I will speak about World Cup quarterfinals that have provided upsets. Let's talk about New Zealand versus South Africa in 2011, when no one expected New Zealand to beat South Africa in Dhaka. Let's also maybe highlight our favorite memories of World Cup quarterfinals. India versus Australia in Mohali in 2011, right? That run chase that set things up for India moving on to the semis and finals. Let's speak about Sri Lanka versus England, that 10-wicket victory against England at Kettarama, when Upul Taranga and Dilshan single-handedly took us home. These are moments in World Cup cricket where you want to see more teams having access to playing the World Cup, so that format suits that, and two, have more knockout cricket to keep everyone engaged. And thirdly, and this might be the most controversial thing that I say, I firmly believe that when it comes to World Cups, and this applies in football, this applies in cricket, in rugby, this applies in most sports, I don't see why you can't have an allocation of a respectable ratio of tickets being given away to the other side. What would that have looked like yesterday? Was the BCCI setting aside maybe 15 or 20,000 tickets? I'm not asking for much. In a stadium that can accommodate 135,000, you have at least 15 or 20,000 tickets being allocated for Pakistani fans or given to the PCB, right? For them to allocate it the way they want. Because I'll be very honest, I agree with I don't necessarily agree with everything that Mickey Arthur says, but at some point yesterday, it seemed like those Pakistani players on the field were completely out of place. And I'm not asking, and bear with me for another minute. I'm not asking for sporting fans, because let's be honest, you can have, if your opposition is performing well, 80% of fans aren't too pleased about it. It's not like the members' pavilion at Lord's that acknowledges every century, every half century, every boundary, regardless of which side performs. And that would be the ideal template for cricket and the ideal template for engagement. But I agree that is not attainable. But to at least have some engagement, at least have the radio or the DJs playing Dil Dil Pakistan every time they score a boundary. Simple things like that keep players engaged, and make them realize that this is an ICC event, a global event, and not India finally having Pakistan at home after like 7 years to bombard them with pro-Indian kind of slogans and just kind of bombard them with that atmosphere. My question, and this will be my final question to everyone as we wrap this up, because I think, and Viren Jr., I commend you for the questions you posed, because we were able to tackle all the tactical elements of yesterday's match early on. I'm going to wrap this up with asking Rook first, and then Pritham, and then Junior. We've spoken about this format on countless shows, that there's a lot of debate about the relevance of this format now. Looking ahead to the next World Cup cycle, would you like to see more teams? Would you like to see an additional quarterfinal in there? What are the changes you'd make to make World Cups relevant again?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you on all the points you just made. And I think even looking at the Associate World Cup itself is an indication that associate nations are becoming a lot more competitive. And if you want them to come and start competing at the level of full member nations, you have to give them the opportunity to play with full member nations, right? I remember reading some article just before the World Cup where it spoke about, India and Pakistan and all the other teams build up to the World Cup, and then Netherlands build up to the World Cup. Poor Netherlands was, the only experience they had was against other associate nations, and I think they played one series against England, or was it Ireland? I'm not sure, but. I really think that if we want, cricket to progress, and another point I want to point out here is that now cricket has been included in the 2028 Olympics in LA. So that's a progressive step. I just don't want to be these steps to be, like the equal opportunity clauses that come in our, job descriptions just for the sake of not being litigated, right? You have to create incentives and make effort to progress, not just so that the big three can come in and control cricket and increase their revenues. I know this is a completely different tangent that I'm going on, but the point I want to make is in line with what Viren said. And this has to be a global tournament. It has to benefit all teams across the globe. So going forward, I would like to see more of that.
Thanks, Pritham.
Yeah, completely agree. No, I would not hold back or take much of a time. I would want the quarterfinals to be back. Similar teams like Nepal, Ireland, even West Indies. These teams are really quality side. If they can be promoted up and given opportunity to play against England, Australia, India, Pakistan, so that will give them more experience. So I would obviously want, if not the groups, at least like this as well. But this will make the tournament much bigger. But yes, I would want quarterfinals to be back.
Thanks, Pritham. And Junior.
Yeah, same message, just different ideas. I think the fact that Nepal was almost able to beat India in the Asia Cup was a testament to how they're able to, not the Asia Cup, sorry, the Asian Games, even though that was like the C or D team. It showed that they're able to give a fight to India, and they have come far. Having lived in Malaysia, I can see the progress in Malaysian cricket and the talent that's emerging, and they're able to give good fights to other top associate nations who are close to the standards of the current World Cup playing nations. The fact that West Indies wasn't able to qualify, not necessarily because they're not worthy. I feel the fact that they were able to beat India in the second ODI is shows that they could have caused an upset if they were a part of this World Cup, and they're full of just amazing personalities, as we know. So the fact that they were not included shows that they're not enough spots in the World Cup. Definitely.
Very well said. Thank you guys for joining us for what was an interesting review show. We will be back very often for preview and review shows. And Pritham, thanks for joining us. We look forward to having you with us on many
Pleasure,
of our
Viren.
shows going forward. Please feel free to, we've tagged Pritham on our stories, etc. Please follow his page. I love listening to his YouTube shorts before every game where he does analysis of even the pitch report prior to each game. So that's something to
Thanks
look
a lot.
forward to. Yes, we've enjoyed this World Cup thus far. I hope everyone's enjoying their Sunday evenings. Uh, I'm going to put in a bold prediction here. I know this will be very, very contrary to what most people believe, but I think there's a potential banana peel game on right now. I actually think Afghanistan with their spinners can potentially pose a threat to England with this total that they've posed. I've already gotten a few odd looks about what I've just
No, no,
said.
no. No, I don't. I agree with you because they have the support as well. They have the support
Exactly.
and even they have the experience. If Rashid and Mujib can strike early, it can cause a problem. I was thinking if Ben Stokes plays today, but he's not. Harry Brooks could be a freebie. I think what anything can happen, but it's a good enough total to defend.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And this might be the first upset that everyone's called for. But even if it doesn't happen today, I'm more than happy for an upset to happen tomorrow when Australia take on Sri Lanka. On that note, take care, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Cheers.
Thanks a lot.